seen Apollo take so much punishment. Get down!
What is up, guys? Noche UFC was pretty fun this weekend. We had a lot of good fights this weekend. Obviously, we were talking about Canelo versus Crawford, too. But we got to talk about the UFC because that's what the night started with at the end of it. And this is a pretty fun card, honestly. We had a lot of good fights on this one. I feel like every time we have like a Noche UFC card, that Mexican fighting spirit really comes out. Like, I think the UFC does a really good job with that. Because if you remember last year, we were in Boston watching it, and that was like, well, technically it was UFC 306, but it was like the same week as this, so they called it Noche UFC. And that was crazy at the Sphere, and, you know, you really had like a whole feel like for that culture, and I feel like they did a good job with it this time too in San Antonio. And, you know, obviously it's not easy competing with like the Canelo fight that was coming later in that night, but considering it was a good appetizer for it, I was happy watching this event. Got the night started in a good way. But let's get into these fights, man. Let's talk about this insane main event between Diego Lopes and Jan Silva. And in case you guys didn't see it, Diego Lopes knocked out Jan Silva in the second round. Brutal spinning elbow and some punches. Wild fight. I mean, the first round starts off, Silva was looking pretty good on the feet, but then overextended. Lopes gets his back, basically has him mounted for most of that round. Somehow, Silva gets out of it, which blew my mind. And then
this guy's a psycho, Silva, man. He's smiling, getting elbows dropped on him.
I mean, I'll be fair. I thought the guy was a bit psychotic when he started barking at Bryce Mitchell for no reason.
I think the writing was already on the wall.
Yeah, because, like, you know, picture it like in your normal everyday life. Like when a guy starts barking at you, like that's a red flag. But not in MMA. In MMA, that's the best face. But I mean, yeah, the fact that he got out of that first round was impressive enough. But then in round two, he's really pushing the pace, hurt Lopes a bunch of times. But then, again, overextends, comes in a little too greedy. Lopes hits him with that spinning elbow, knocks him out. And, yeah, man, it was just a brutal finish. But a great fight, honestly, for, you know, while it lasted. Great win by Lopes. I don't think it really pushes Silva back too much. But, you know, we'll kind of get into that. But what did you think of the fight itself?
Well, I mean, you gotta give Diego Lopes for taking this fight. Anyways, I understand it's the Noche UFC card, and he wants to put on for the country he's adopted. But still, it's a big challenge. As the number two ranked contender going against number 10, a guy who's been surging the entire past year and has as much finish ability as he does. So just for him to take this fight anyways, and understand that if he does get a finish himself, that he'll be right back into the thick of a title shot. He's got the heart of a champion. I know that's for sure.
We kind of proved that too when he fought Volkanovski, honestly, like, you know, just lasting the distance in that fight. And this guy, I mean, ever since he's been in the UFC, he's just been a guy that the company can depend on. I mean, you think about his debut when he came in and fought Evloev on short notice, and then since then becoming one of the biggest stars in the division, even though he started his UFC career with a loss to someone who's, ironically enough, in that upper echelon at 145 with him.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's been a guy that the company could depend on. He's fought a lot of good dudes, and, you know, this was a fan-friendly type of fight. Everybody was excited for this one.
The thing about that is, I think a lot of guys are going to look at this, like Aljamain Sterling, for instance. Evloev could get a rematch, but a lot of guys ranked beneath him are going to look at this and be like, well, if Silva can get this fight, then I can get this fight. Like, what's stopping me from, getting what's stopping me from getting Diego Lopes on his back, and you know, John Silva wasn't able to get the finish, but maybe someone else thinks they could get the finish. So
Well, to Lopez's credit too, he didn't really have a specific call out. He was like, if you guys think I need one more fight, just send the next guy. And like, I respect that because, you know, if you really believe you're the best in the world, then you'll prove it against anybody. And like, there's a lot of guys who want to operate from that like business first mentality, and they're going to try and handpick their way back to a title shot. But Diego Lopes, I mean, he's ready to go. He wants the next fight, and you know, it's an interesting spot right now for featherweight because it feels like Lerone Murphy's going to get the next title shot. And now because of that, there's a few options for Lopes. You know, I think like you mentioned, Aljamain Sterling. Evloev rematch is intriguing. Even Arnold Allen, you know, lurking around somewhere, unless he has a fight booked. I'm not 100% sure. Featherweight is really interesting right now, and I think that Lopes getting this win and kind of maintaining his spot in that top five is it's a good thing for the division. And I don't think John Silva's done by any means. You know, he showed flashes of why people have touted him so highly in this fight, even though it didn't go his way. So I think out of all the fighting nerds, he's probably still the guy that you want to keep an eye on.
Okay, so here's what it's another one of these cases where MMA fans show how fickle they really are, and they're all for hype train. They see how exciting the fighting nerds have been and how much they've been racking up wins and how active they've been, and now that they're on a skid, they're like, well, fraud checked. These guys are overhyped. They weren't really as good as we all thought they were, and now it's just like. It's just like I said, for instance, it's like John Silva, he's facing a true title contender, and it's like, well, forget everything else he's done to this point to get the fight in the first place.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. It's not like those hype trains where they're giving these fighters like crazy opportunities when they haven't earned it. Like all of these guys are on crazy win streaks, had beaten the next guys up. And really the only place that you could put them were in big fights like these. And just because they didn't win them doesn't mean they didn't deserve to be there in the first place. You're right about MMA fans. I think that they can be like really brutal sometimes and have a very short memory. And again, it's not like, you know, John Silva was being dominated at points in this fight, but John Silva also showed a lot of heart and skill in this fight.
I get it. I get it on the other front where sometimes it feels, well, at least in this fight, it kind of came across as like John Silva in a way beat himself because of how comfortable he felt pressuring Diego Lopes, and then he got caught, of course. And you know, we've kind of seen already with the Fighting Nerds camp that they just have that kill or be killed mentality that how can you not love as a MMA fan? So they understand that, and then obviously the higher ups are going to be looking at that kind of style, and that's why a guy like John Silva is going to get the main event of this kind of card. So
I do think he deserved to be there, as well as all the other fighting nerds in the big fights that they put them in, you know? I think that they earn their opportunities. It's like they beat the guys who were put in front of them, and eventually you need to test these guys against top contender. And like I said, just because they lost those fights doesn't mean they didn't deserve to be there in the first place, and doesn't mean they won't be back. You know, I mean, they have fan-friendly styles, a couple good wins.
Yeah, like there's always room for improvement in a sport like this, and so, the higher you fight up, the more and more of a chess match it's gonna become. Like look at what we saw with Canelo and Terrence Crawford, for instance, the two of the greatest boxers of all time in the world right now, how much of a chess match that was. So it all starts with the mental game. Like you gotta understand that there's 25 minutes that this fight could last. Like you can't just go in just kind of with the mentality that that this guy can't finish me the same way I can finish him.
Do you think that the main event spotlight meant anything to John Silva. Not that like the pressure got to him, but like
Oh
fighting
yeah.
over emotional. Like because if you think
Yes.
about it during the
Absolutely.
week, yeah, he was crying, signing the poster. You know,
Absolutely.
even
I
walking
think
out.
John Silva is a guy who I think most definitely kind of he as much as he lives for the sport of MMA and to separate people from consciousness, and he also lives for like that. He wants that glory and that recognition and the fame and the camera because he's clearly not a soft spoken dude. Like this guy he will talk, that's for sure. He will talk as much shit as he possibly can. And then he's able to back it up usually. Like even for this even this fight for instance, he's like, I'm gonna knock this guy. He doesn't even know if he's Mexican or Brazilian. So he's got that.
It sounds like a Chael Sonnen type of quote.
Like,
It really does.
he's hilarious. I think he does kind of pick up like that, those Chael Sonnenisms that were, the camera's on him. Like he's all about what happens in the cage first and foremost. But he understands that because he can back it up inside. He'll say whatever. It doesn't matter how off the handle it is, how out of pocket it is. I think he's the kind of guy that'll say it.
Yeah. I mean, this was a fun one, though. I'm glad that they matched these guys up because, like, right when they booked this fight, I think every UFC fan was amped. And then for the fight to go the way that it did, it was pretty fun because now you have, like I said, Diego Lopes is back really in the title conversation at 145, and John Silva, even coming off of a loss, still kind of excited about the future for him. So, what's up, guys? Sorry to interrupt the podcast real quick, but we have a message for you guys.
If you enjoy her Hamburg's content, you want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like on the videos, all sorts of fight content as much as possible, podcasts, interviews, vlogs. We have it all over here, so thank you, appreciate it.
We appreciate you, and like he said, please subscribe. And now, back to the show. Going to the co-main event, though, David Martinez with a crazy upset over Rob Font. That kind of blew my mind. I mean, Rob Font, obviously, we know he's getting a little old at 135.
6-0 on the night for the Mexican.
That's awesome, though.
That is, and because of how much this card delivered too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, the fans are going to get even crazier too. Like, and you know, obviously, San Antonio, Texas is in America, but there's a big Mexican audience down there, and that it was cool to just kind of see their fighters do well because it's like the Paris card, same thing with the French fighters winning there. Like you just kind of want to see that because it brings the energy
against established opponents.
Yeah, and this was no different than that. I mean, Rob Font, you know, we know what's made him so good for a long time. He has really good pressure. You know, his jab is phenomenal. I think one of the best in the UFC, but now that he's been around for so long, it seems like some of these up-and-comers are finding ways to beat him. And in this fight, I thought Martinez did it in the most clear-cut way possible, you know, attacking the legs. Obviously, you know, Font's throwing that jab. He's putting a lot of weight on that front leg. Leg kicks are the obvious way to beat a guy like that. I mean, look at Nate Diaz when he was in the UFC. That's kind of what the first thing that people would attack there, too. And I think the speed difference was very noticeable. Rob's boxing was a lot slower than Martinez's kicks and combinations. It just seemed like Rob Font, you know, was very focused on fighting with just that boxing style, and Martinez really was able to mix it up more and keep Font guessing, and that's ultimately what won in the fight. He just had more weapons, and, you know, he's younger and faster. I think that's really what it comes down to at the end of it. Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
well, yeah, when I see a prospect that, like me included, and the general public really doesn't have much of a clue about going up against, like I just said, an established opponent, established veteran like Rob Font. You kind of like Rob Font. He was a slight favorite in this fight. It's not like he was some crazy overwhelming favorite. He's facing some guy stepping in on short notice, the whole nine. But you like you said, you kind of expected over the course of an entire fight that Rob Font would just kind of be able to just keep Martinez guessing. pressure on the back foot, and like the jab would kind of just, you would think kind of just would be enough to get the job done. But like, yeah, Martinez, when you do a good enough job of mixing up the martial arts, like you're gonna find ways to. He's crafty. He's very crafty, young guy, and I think that's gonna carry him quite a bit, especially in a division like the bantamweight division. So.
I mean, what a huge win for him, too. I mean, taking that fight on short notice versus a guy like Rob Font, who's fought some of the best fighters in that division, and then you upset him like that, and you look as good as he did doing it, mixing up the striking in the way that he did. And, obviously this was supposed to be Rob Font versus Raul Rosas, but now David Martinez comes in, plays spoiler, and now he's probably landed himself in the top 10. Like, talk about a perfect night.
Yeah, and if this fight with Raul Rosas did end up happening with him and Rob Font, I think this would have been a completely different fight.
Yeah, different styles though, too.
Yeah,
and that could matter too. That could have mattered in this fight. Obviously, Rob Font's preparing for a grappler, then gets a
very
slick
true.
striker.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, I don't want to take anything away from Martinez because, at the end of the day,
because
Font
there's
is 36.
Exactly. Yeah,
so.
Martinez showed kind of stuff that, in a way, you can't teach in there. It's just because like Rob Font across from him was very sticking to the jab and the boxing, and just what he's gonna be able to do with his hands. And Martinez just kind of threw everything at him that he had to offer on the feet, and it's a very crafty display that soon enough could rack him some finishes. So
yeah, for sure. And I think Martinez as well. Like when you're just thinking about it from like a range perspective, kickboxing range is a little further apart than boxing range.
Yeah,
and
that too. Yeah.
Font just couldn't close that distance for enough of this fight. But to move on to Rafa Garcia versus Jared Gordon, that's almost like the complete opposite. There was no range finding in this fight. These dudes just stood into the pocket, stood in the pocket and just stood and bang. And that's ultimately what we want to see. And I said this last week too, on the solo pod. I was like, not a lot of people are talking about this fight. I get that it doesn't have like crazy implications on the rankings or anything, but Rafa Garcia versus Jared Gordon is going to be an awesome fight. And thankfully it was. It was a war as expected. And I think that the fight kind of changed from a total war to kind of Garcia taking over a bit when he started throwing the elbows. That seemed to be the real game changer there. Gordon would come into range, and then Garcia, I mean, it just seemed like every elbow he hit Gordon with cut him. It was unreal how much damage they were causing. It's not like it was just superficial with the cuts. I mean, he was hurting him a lot of those times too, and obviously ends up finishing him in the third with an elbow. Just unreal, man. I mean, that was a crazy fight. But I don't even know... Like, I don't even know where I want to go with this conversation, to be honest.
It was a crazy fight that Jared Gordon was clearly winning after 2 rounds, and then Rafa Garcia comes back and finishes it like that. It's just the kind of stuff that you can't get enough of as a fan. So,
I mean, I'm not mad that the main event won fight of the night, because that was an insane fight too. But this one, I think if the main event didn't happen, that would have been clear fight of the night. And I still think it had a case even now. I mean, like I said, there's not much of a conversation that we can have about like what it does to the lightweight rankings or anything. But if you guys didn't catch that fight, go back and watch it, because that was a fun one. But big win for Garcia, because Jared Gordon's been around for a while. He's fought some killers, and for him to kind of come back like that and hit him with those elbows, that was pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. But to move on now to Kelvin Gastelum. Now this is going to be an interesting conversation. He defeats Dustin Stoltzfus by unanimous decision, 130-27 scorecard and 229-28. Kelvin Gastelum looked like Kelvin Gastelum out there, right? His boxing looked amazing. But the win is kind of clouded. And to address the elephant in the room, no pun intended, of course, Gastelum missed weight by 5 pounds, and that's obviously not good at all. And you think about what's gone on in the UFC lately with people who've missed weight over and over again. You see Brian Battle, he just got cut, and you have to wonder if the same thing is going to happen to Kelvin Gastelum now. Personally, I think that I really think they should, just because it's like, how can you cut one guy and then not cut the other, especially considering Gastelum's missed weight more times in the UFC than Brian Battle has. And I feel bad because I think everybody loves watching Kelvin Gastelum, and I don't think Kelvin Gastelum's a bad guy at all, obviously, but it's just, they were saying he took the fight on short notice, but like 4 weeks, you've seen people make weight in 4 weeks. It's not like it was 4 days. And I don't know. I don't want to see Kelvin Gastelum get cut, but at some point it's like, you have to ask yourself the question, I mean, they cut Brian Battle. Do they have to cut Kelvin Gastelum? I mean, you can't say no very surely. You know what I mean? You have to at least ask the question, because this is the 5th time now that he's missed weight in the UFC, which is crazy to think about. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what do you think about this one?
Look, so where do you think it should start? Should it start with the fight itself and how much Kelvin Gastelum still looks like himself and a guy who's still who's still able to stick around in this middleweight division? Or
I don't know if that matters though, because Brian Battle, I mean, he was looking great in the UFC and they still cut him. A lot of people like Brian Battle, and now he's in the PFL, which I think is a good spot for him at this point. But
the thing, it's different with Kelvin. It's different with Kelvin Gastelum, because Kelvin Gastelum has already given so much to UFC in terms of incredible performances and fights of his own, and Brian Battle was still more or less just getting started, missing weight as much as he was. So Brian Battle, I'm sure, could find a way to get back at some point. Kelvin Gastelum doesn't have much left, will not get back to UFC should he get cut, and if he's going to continue to give you performances like these and just straight up, like just keep winning, like I don't think he cut the guy. I think the guy is still his brand of stand up, and and his way of, well, what am I getting? His brand, because the way that this guy hits so fucking hard every time I watch it, and it's just kind of like with each given, when you got a guy who can brawl with each given shot, and any punch he throws has the capability of dropping a guy.
When you come in 5 pounds overweight, I mean, you get a bit more power though. That's kind of, I don't know. Like, I think it mattered in this fight. I mean, those shots that he was hitting Stoltzfus with, I mean, those were big shots, and you have to wonder if he would have had to cut the rest of the weight, would he have had as much sting on him? I mean, he came in, it's not like he came in a pound over, he missed it by like a mile.
That's kind of why I, had to kind of was stopping myself just now, because
it's a tough conversation. I mean, everybody likes Kelvin Gastelum. I don't think anybody who's asking this question wants to see him cut. But at the end of the day, Kelvin Gastelum has missed weight 5 times now in the UFC. They just cut Brian Battle for the same thing. Again, albeit they're in 2 completely different spots in their respective careers. But, this time he came in 5 pounds over. I mean, that's really bad. And I get that he took the fight. It's on 4 weeks notice. But 5 pounds, I mean, that's really a lot. And I don't know. I don't want to see Kelvin Gastelum get cut. But I think at this point the conversation at least has to be had. And I think if he doesn't get cut, man, he better make weight in his next fight. Because I think if he misses it again, I don't know how you can defend that. But I do agree with you in the sense that he's given a lot to the UFC, a lot of great moments. I mean, legendary wins, legendary fights. His fight with Israel Adesanya is in the UFC Hall of Fame. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And it sucks that we have to talk about this with Kelvin Gastelum because it seems like it's been a conversation throughout his whole career. And again, it overshadows a fun performance and fun fight, to be honest.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of just finding the way and the words to just describe it, because you can't overlook the fact that he came in overweight again, and now it's at a point where he's going to be stopping himself from getting booked a whole lot.
And even if he were to go on a huge win streak, it doesn't help him either, because it's do you want to give a guy a title shot who can't make the weight? And not that he's anywhere near that right now, but it's just he's not going to get anywhere closer for things like this.
It's just still, and I mean, this fight in particular, his cardio also looked good, and just a guy who just brings that level of stand up to his game is just something that UFC obviously will covet a lot, and it's gonna just make it that much harder for them to make the decision to cut him. But
yeah, I agree with that. I honestly don't think he'll be cut, but I think it's just you have to at least start having the conversation when something as egregious as this happens. Missing weight by 5 pounds, but still. Good win by Kelvin Gastelum is what it is. We're going to see what happens with him next. I feel like if they were to cut him, they would have done it by now, Sure. So yeah. I think let's hop into this next fight. Alexander Hernandez versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. And Hernandez getting his second knockout in 4 weeks. Obviously he had just fought on the UFC 319 card. Now he gets booked in his hometown, apparently. I didn't even know that. I didn't know he was from San Antonio. But gets booked in his hometown, gets a huge win. Been on a tear lately. This is his 4th win in a row. And he's a guy who has a good base for MMA, too, if you think about it, because he's a good wrestler. He's got a lot of power in his hands. And at this point, he's been in the UFC long enough that he has a pretty decent fight IQ, in my opinion. Ultimately, great win. I think another big story of this fight, though, is going to be that stoppage, because I don't know what that referee, his name is Jeff Rexroad, I don't know what he was looking at, man, because I don't know if he was waiting for Hernandez to put Ferreira's head through the canvas or if he was waiting to see his head split open, but that was unreal that he let it go on that long. That fight, you could argue that fight could have been stopped after the first strike on the ground. That, it was real bad. But yeah, I don't know. We could talk about the fight. We could talk about the stoppage. What do you want to kind of attack here first?
Well, what I like about these kinds of cards is it does turn you on to fighters you don't have. You may not have the biggest understanding of yet, because they're getting the spot on a main card, and that's the whole, everybody's going to be watching. And so for this card this fighter here is a prime example of that. And at least from Hernandez's perspective, is a guy who's going to give a lot of fits to whoever he fights in the future. That much was clear with how this fight ended. I mean, the finish itself, I said before the show to you, it was I'd rather see 10 early stoppages than some dude have to get sent into
the Shadow Realm.
Shadow Realm and back for the fight to end. So I don't know what the hell happened there, but
yeah, it sucked.
Texas is ruthless.
I can even tell just by the way that you're talking about it. You want to talk about the fight, but it's you kind of get your way through it, and then you get to the end, and you're like, yeah, but that was insane. You want to talk about Hernandez's power, you want to talk about the knockout itself, but it's when you get to the knockout and you have to talk about the stoppage, you can't really focus on anything else because that stoppage was so bad by Jeff Rexroad.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know if he was waiting for the canvas to break under Ferreira's head. But
Well,
that was nuts, man. And Texas usually has problems with judging. Yesterday the judging was pretty good, but the reffing was kind of out there. I mean, we didn't even talk about this during the co-main event, but like even Big Dan Murgliata not hearing the bell at the end of Rob Font versus David Martinez. Like Martinez was just throwing bombs and they just keep ringing the horn. I was like, that was crazy. But yeah, Texas, I don't know, they didn't look too good last night with the reffing. But,
well, Hernandez's call out was pretty sick. To say
yeah,
the least.
true. We could focus more
Imagine
on
that
That'd be a good
matchup
fight.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah, Alexander Hernandez versus Michael Chandler. I don't think it's likely, sadly.
Two
'cause
wrestlers with finishing power. Yeah.
I think Chandler's still waiting for Conor McGregor, especially now after the Patty fight. I think it's just like he's just hoping and praying.
Yeah, it's
that
gonna
they
take
fight at the
Conor
White House.
McGregor to just officially retire. For Michael Chandler to give it up.
I mean, dude, now I think Chandler sees that White House card, wants to fight in front of Trump, Lord Trump. The UFC fighters, they love Trump. I mean, that would be crazy if he did fight Conor McGregor at the White House. I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility, just because Dana White has talked about wanting Conor to headline that card. But hey, maybe we'll get lucky and we'll see Alexander Hernandez fight Michael Chandler, but I doubt it because it doesn't seem like Chandler's too interested in giving the next generation shots, especially probably now after Patty. I feel like after that, now there's no hope. But either way, a lot of fun fights on this card, really entertaining, and it was a good way to get the night started before the Canelo fight. And this was a fun one, man. And there's no UFC card next week, but the UFC is back on the 28th with Reyes versus Ulberg. So when it comes to UFC recaps, we'll be back recapping that in 2 weeks' time. So we will see y'all.
Feel just like a superstar. Doing all these drugs, I don't think I'm gonna see them.